I see we already have Justin on. I'm going to go ahead and text Evelyn just in case she's not signing on yet.
Justin, how are you, sir?
Good. How's it going, Chris?
Good, good.
Everybody is really prompt today. Good job.
Chris, have you officially started this meeting yet?
Not yet. Sorry, I'm like playing
Oh,
around.
no problem. I was going to mention in our last meeting that I bet the single family home zoning is a real hot button issue right now. And most of the people I saw posting was talking about lack of parking. And I thought, I should probably bring that up, but I didn't want to make our meeting go 2 hours over.
Yeah.
I heard about that. I didn't. I mean, I didn't look too much into their proposal, but I don't know. It sounds pretty ambitious, to be honest. I'm kind of interested to see what's going to come out of it.
Yeah, and then my advice to the commissions, including to the Park and Place Commission, is just let's see it play out. Let's keep an eye on council when they hear it,
Yeah.
and if there is something that we do need to discuss after that, we'll agendize it and put that into our meetings. But yeah, no, it's definitely a hot button issue. So.
But for our traffic safety commission, I guess it doesn't really pertain to us too much.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, looks like everyone's here. Should we get started?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So I'll call this meeting to order. It's 5:29. Can we do roll call, please?
Yes. Chairperson Yuen,
Here.
Vice Chairperson Fung,
Here.
Commissioner Abarca. Commissioner Abarca, I didn't quite hear you.
Sorry about it. I was off. Yes.
That's it. Thank you.
Yes.
And Commissioner Monzon.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Okay, and then next up is review of the agenda. Any comments on our agenda for tonight?
Comments or changes to the agenda.
So if not, are we voting to approve, or is that just for the minutes?
We just approved the minutes, so now
Okay.
we can move on.
Okay. Do we have any public comment?
We've not received any notice of anyone here tonight or any emails for public comment.
Okay. And then approval of the meeting minutes of the special joint meeting of the Parking Place Commission and Traffic Safety Commission on February 9th. So can I have a motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve.
I second.
Okay, I'll just take a roll call for the vote. Commissioner Malfatti,
Yes.
Chairperson Yuen,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Fung,
Yes.
Commissioner
Yes.
Abarca,
Yes.
and Commissioner Monzon.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
All righty. So next up, we have items from staff. San Mateo, an update on the San Mateo 101 express lanes. So I'll turn it over to you, Chris.
All right, and actually before I begin, I just wanted to introduce the Traffic Safety Commission to our principal planner, Adina Friedman, who will be joining us from meetings from time to time, mostly to keep me in check. So let's just
Hey everybody, nice to meet you all.
Great to have you here.
All right, and then I will actually then pivot and deflect to introduce the San Mateo 101 Express Lanes and the project team from Samtrans and their consultant team is here to make a presentation. So let me just go ahead and introduce them. Sophie, are you taking on?
Actually, I'll take the first bit and hand it over to Sophia. Hi, everyone. Jessica Epstein, and I am with the Government and Community Affairs team for the San Mateo County Transit District. And in that capacity, we work actually for several different agencies. And I'm here tonight on behalf of two of them, the Joint Powers Authority, that's the manager of the express lanes, and the San Mateo County Transportation Authority, which is the funder of the express lanes. This will all become clear as we go through the presentation. As you can see, I've got a lot of logos above my head. That's because there's a lot of different agencies involved in the work we're doing. So we wanted to come here tonight to give you essentially an overarching update on the Express Lanes project, the construction, and then talk a little bit about the management structure. And then really the heart of this is I'm going to turn it over to Sophia, who's with the team that's leading our equity study. So this is a study where we're looking at how to reinvest toll revenue in the community. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Make sure I get the right thing. There we go. All right, so as I said, we're going to talk about construction, the management, toll, touch briefly on the toll policy, excuse me, and then talk about the equity study. We're really happy to be here tonight. So thank you for giving us the time. So again, with construction is what's the purpose? What is an express lane? That actually comes up a lot, and the timing. So we all basically know essentially what it was like pre-COVID, right? Really intense traffic, lots of predictions around growth in population and housing, looking at 60,000 new housing units in the Bay Area, 134,000 new jobs. We believe that this is going to hold. We're already seeing an uptick in traffic as people do return to work, that the traffic is still going to be a really significant issue in this region over the long term. There's a lot of different projects working to address this beyond the express lanes. There's also Caltrain electrification is moving along. Their Samtrans has worked on an express bus study. We actually launched a very successful express bus from Foster City into San Francisco, which had to be suspended due to COVID. And then but we're currently reevaluating our express bus options. Another really significant project is that in Santa Clara, they are also building an express lane on 101. So from the user experience, it's going to be the same, whether you're in the San Mateo or Santa Clara County stretch of the express lanes, you'll experience it the same way. So ultimately, we're looking at basically a drive from South San Francisco to Sunnyvale, all continuously in one express lane. So, I keep saying the term express lanes. There's a lot of terminology that gets thrown around. And one of the things we wanted to do is just really simplify that and make sure everybody understood. When we talk about general purpose lanes, what that actually means is just a regular old freeway. That's the freeway lane you travel in all the time. You also see the term HOV or high occupancy vehicle. That just means carpool lanes. That's a lane that has to have more than one person in the vehicle in order to access it. And then finally, we have express lanes, what we're talking about tonight. And the way to think about an express lane is it's basically a carpool lane where buses and carpools and different types of high occupancy vehicles can travel in it for free. But with an express lane, there's options to pay to use the lane. So if you are a solo driver and you want to essentially access the speed of the express lane, and our goal is to keep that lane at 45 miles an hour. It's a goal. It's not a guarantee, but it's definitely a goal, that you can then pay a toll to use the lane. Two-person carpools are going to be able to use the lane, but at a discount. So they still need to pay, but a discounted rate, same with clean air vehicles. And then you get up to a three-person carpool, and those people will be able to use the lane for free. So it's basically a three-person carpool lane, but with the ability for those who don't qualify to pay to use the lane. And that is where the toll revenue comes from. So in terms of what we're actually talking about, the blue on this map is the Santa Clara border to Redwood City, to Whipple and Redwood City. That's where we have an existing carpool lane that's being converted to an express lane. And then from Redwood City up to 380, that's where we're building the express lane. So in that stretch, we're actually reconfiguring the freeway so that you'll have the same number of general purpose lanes as you did before, but there will also be at the center these new express lanes. The southern section, the blue part, that's going to open in late 2021. That's at the same time as the Santa Clara section will open. So again, that from a user experience, it won't just be Santa Clara border to Redwood City. It'll be Redwood City down to about Sunnyvale. The northern section up to 380, that will be at the end of 2022. We also have a few really big construction milestones going on. We actually managed to close the freeway fully and single locations 5 nights in a row last week, and we got no complaints, which I'm calling a communications success story. But we had really detailed detours worked out with each of the cities, and these closures happened in the very, very late night. It was in the midnight to 4 a.m. time frame. But that was to start working on replacing the signage over the freeway. The other thing that's happening right now is if you go along the freeway, you see all these white barriers. Those are called K-rail. That K-rail is being moved from the outside of the freeway to the inside of the freeway. And so what that means is that instead of, well, right now, you know, for instance, I live in Belmont, and with the construction, I have a very short merge onto the freeway. Thankfully, that's going to go away soon over the next few months. And because we'll be actually having what will be the real and long-term merges and lanes that help you get on and off the freeway, because the construction now will mostly be focused in the center. Also, if you come across any of our ramp closures, those are going to go down dramatically because, again, that work is starting to wrap up, and we're really focusing now on the center of the freeway and getting those the signage in and actually building the express lane itself. So this is what it's going to look like. You know, you have your regular lanes, your general purpose lanes, and then on the far left, you have the express lane, and there's going to be a whole bunch of signage. There's a sign that tells you the hours of operation. You see that HOV 3+. Well, now we all know HOV means carpool, so that means 3-person carpools, right for free. And then there's this really critical sign, which is what does it cost to get essentially from zone to zone, from place to place. This is what it looks like in the real world. This is out in the East Bay. And so the driver who's up at seeing this sign is like, oh, well, it's $1 for me to travel to Crow Canyon Road. And it's $1.50 to go all the way to El Costa Boulevard. So you see, the longer you travel, the more the cost is. And again, this is a choice. No one ever has to use this lane. It's just if they want to, they can. And this is the fee to use the lane. What's really important, and you're going to start seeing a lot more communications and marketing around this come fall before the lanes open, is the Fast Track Flex. So the Fast Track Flex, wow, I say that 5 times real fast. So that is the new Fast Track. Your existing Fast Track, if you have the old style, will work in the lane, but it will register you as a solo driver no matter how many people you have in the lane. What this allows people to do is you see that little tab that goes to the first, second, or third position. This is how you communicate with the system to say how many people are in your car. So if you have 2 people, or if you're driving in your Prius, you say, okay, here I am. I'm in the 2-person, I'm in the clean air vehicle. If you do the 3-person, that's because you have 3 people in the car, you're now traveling for free. And if you put it in the single 1 position, that means that you are a solo driver, you're telling the system, and you're going to pay the toll to ride in the lane. You don't need this, again, it's not required. But again, if you don't have one of these, you don't have the ability to use either the 3 or the 2 position. You'll always register as being a solo driver. And then the question we get all the time, yes, this Fast Track will work on the entire system in California. Anywhere that uses a Fast Track, this Fast Track will work. You do not need to have multiple devices in your car. So as we get closer to the lanes opening, definitely expect to see a lot more about the Fast Track Flex out there in the community. If you are super interested in the construction, we have both a weekly email and quarterly email. The weekly email is really like, this is what's closing this week. This is what's opening. Here's the latest. The quarterly is an overarching update on everything. You sign up by emailing 101express@dot.ca.gov, or you email Chris, who will forward it to me, and I'll get you signed. So we're building a lane. We also have to manage and operate it. So Caltrans is actually the lead agency for the construction, but the Transportation Authority and CCAG are working together as funding partners and as project partners to help Caltrans deliver the construction. CCAG and the TA, so the TA is who I work for. It's one of the, it's basically an agency that helps administer sales tax. So we're working together to also manage the lanes, and so in order to keep that management local, we created the San Mateo County Express Lanes Joint Powers Authority, which looks like this. So you'll see it's staffed by CCAG and the TA, and our board is made up 3 of CCAG members, 3 of TA members, but critically Supervisor Don Horsley is the chair. And then you see a variety of elected officials are the board for this Joint Powers Authority, and they make all essentially the policy decisions and the ownership decisions around how the express lanes will operate. So I get asked a lot, what's the pricing going to look like? What are the discounts going to look like? That is a decision that the board will make. They haven't made it yet. This summer, 2021, is when we anticipate that decision. And so that's when they're really going to look at all the different options for pricing. And, we're going to use this thing. It's basically called dynamic pricing. So it's not like, I can't say, the lane will always cost you $3 to travel 2 miles. That's not going to exist, because the cost actually goes up and down depending on how crowded the lane is. That's the dynamic. So, the more crowded the lane, the more expensive it is to pay to use it, because again, the carpools, the buses, those are the top priority in trying to keep that goal of a fast lane. So the board will set the parameters, and that cost, that's essentially one of the major policy decisions that will come probably early summer 2021. So that's one of the big policy decisions. But the other really big policy decision is around equity and how we should take those toll money and reinvest it. So I'm happy to stop and answer questions now on the construction, or we could go right into the equity policy and do questions at the end. Any thoughts? All right. Well, we'll just keep going then. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sophia, who's going to talk to you about the equities component.
Sorry, I believe Commissioner Monzon has a question.
Jessica?
Hi.
Hi. 3 questions. The buses will be paying the hours. Can you give us more explanation on the hours, that it will be different than the current hours that use in the carpool?
So the specific hours haven't been established yet for when the lanes will be active, but it will be all day. So expect early morning to late evening that it will be a paying lane, but the buses will be free. So like the Samtrans buses, they will ride in the lane for free, partially because they're high occupancy vehicles, but also because under the statute that those buses will ride for free.
Sorry, I didn't mean the transit buses. I mean the tech buses.
So that is one of those, it's a decision that the board will make, but there may be some legal parameters, but I'm happy to take any comments or thoughts you have on whether tech buses should be able to be used for free, and we'll incorporate that into the feedback of the toll policy. I would say we don't have the answer to that yet. That's part of the toll policy that will be decided this summer.
And thanks for the explanation, but can you explain better how this is going to be the benefit? Can you give us a scenario of today, how it's going to be? I'm coming from Redwood City and there is traffic. How is going to be the benefit for a person?
There's a few different ways. So first off, one of our main goals is to encourage people to be in high occupancy and to carpool, to be together, to take buses, to take public transit. And so simply having a lane that allows those vehicles to travel faster is an incentive to get people into those vehicles alone. The other component is that when you start pulling people out of those other lanes to use the express lane, that loosens up the traffic in the regular lanes. So overall, we hope to see a lower traffic or a higher traffic speed across all the lanes. So that is a hope that the other lanes will start moving faster, but we also just have this now opportunity to really incentivize that high occupancy vehicle travel, that multi-person in a vehicle travel. And also, quite frankly, it's one of those situations where we don't anticipate people will pay to be in the lanes every day as part of their commute, but they will when they need to. You know, I'm going to be late to pick up my kid from school. I'll get fined. Well, you know what? It'll cost me $5 to be in the lane or $40 if I'm late to pick up my kid. I'm going to be late to work. I could lose my job. $5 to be in the lane versus late to work. So we have, it creates what the goal is, you know, I said the goal is essentially 45 miles an hour. So to always create the situation to give people the opportunity to travel on the freeway outside of traffic through the express lanes. That is the goal of the building of one of these.
And once you get in on the express lane, you've been charged. If you get out and you come back, you've been charged again?
Yeah, it basically works by how much distance you're in. And one of the nice things about these lanes is we don't have any restrictions on when you can get in and out. So, you know, some lanes would be like, oh, you can only enter in this place. You can only exit in this place. You can, for these lanes, you can't. Now, one piece I don't know, and I might call in Matt off the bench, who's one of our technical experts who's lurking there in the background, of how it actually works technically if you kind of weave in and out, if you get charged multiple times. I'm not sure how many times the system would register you, if that's part of the question. I mean, I think basically if you get in the lanes, you should try to stay in the lane. If you exit and then re-enter in a different zone, you'll be charged again. I'm not sure if you exit and enter in the same zone, of whether that would cause multiple charges.
And one more question. Before the San Mateo, for example, that is starting next December, the exits, for example, the 92 coming north is being under construction for probably 3 years and it's kind of like a stall right now. Do you foresee that will be complete? So that way that area it has a better traffic movement, because now you're expecting something on the express lane, but if your ramp going to 92 is not complete, we will get a bottleneck again on that one. Are you working in tandem to accomplish at the same time?
Are you talking about the 92-101 interchange?
Yes, coming north to one. It's being under construction probably 4 years and it's kind of stalled right now. I don't see any action.
So the 92-101 interchange has actually been split into two separate projects. One is, you know, what can we accomplish in the short term and what can we accomplish in the long term? So the same, you know, at my agency, the same technical staff who is working on the express lanes is also working on 92-101. So there's a lot of thought about how we can make those work together. I will say 92-101 is not on the same schedule. It is more in the planning phase and is well away from construction. So we are looking at long-term horizons here, but we are being very thoughtful about it. We're very aware of it, and we really hope to ultimately create a system where the 92 and the express lanes can connect together and make for a more seamless transition, and to also create something express or at least more high occupancy on 92. The we're thinking about this stuff is just, you know, construction pacing is very, very long.
And I'll jump in about the previous question regarding, you know, getting in and out of the lane and how you would be charged. It's a good question. It's just, it has lots of different answers. It would really depend exactly where you got in and where you got out. You know, the project is going to be broken up into different tolling zones. And so you're going to get in, you're going to go through a tolling zone, you're going to go under a gantry, you're going to be recognized and charged. If you were to get in and get out before the next toll zone, nothing would likely happen. So, but it would really depend. I think the best advice I would say is, you know, the lane is meant for you to enter into it, take it to right before, you want to get out to your final destination before you're going to safely get over to get off the exit ramp and then get off. If everybody's trying to weave in and out, then that's going to just, from a traffic operations perspective, it's going to be problematic and, cause issues. And if people do try to weave to intentionally avoid the tolling zones, that is an enforceable offense.
But Hermes, I'm really glad you brought up this question because quite frankly, it's not something I had thought about. And we're about to do our communication, education, and marketing around actually using the lanes. That's what's going to happen in the fall. And so that I think is something that we need to be proactively thinking about, how to make sure we're educating people about the right way to use the lanes, and that essentially weaving in and out won't save you any money, but you may accidentally trigger extra cost if you jump in and jump out. So we'll very much take that comment and see how we can incorporate that into our communication.
Yeah, just one final thing I neglected to say, because really when you enter the lane and you see that first pricing sign that says your price will be this to this and this to the final destination, you're guaranteed that price. And so if you were to get out for a segment, get back in, and let's say congestion had gotten worse and the pricing algorithm had adjusted the price to a higher price, you'd be subject to that next higher price. So you really just want to, get over, get in, and go.
And so if I understood well, right now there is no pricing set, right?
Yes,
No,
right.
there is no pricing set. We will establish a toll ordinance, which will come up with all the business rules and parameters and toll policy. And then the pricing will dynamically adjust based on the level of congestion to guarantee that 45 miles per hour that Jessica was talking about. To not guarantee, but that targeted goal. So that's what it's trying to do. It's using that to restrict the amount of supply so people can go at that speed.
Thank you.
Can I just ask for a quick time check? I don't want to hold anyone here later than we're supposed to be.
No, you guys are okay. Keep.
Okay.
All right, great. So why don't we turn this over to Sophia?
Okay. So after that great overview of the Express Lanes project that Jessica gave, I just want to jump into the equity program study, which is a study we're doing to look at sort of equity considerations and to develop a pilot equity program that would be funded with revenue from the toll lanes. So the purpose of the pilot equity program would be to provide meaningful mobility benefits to historically underserved communities within San Mateo County. And we're designing this as a pilot because we want to ensure that it can be flexible and adapt and be improved as sort of we implement the program going forward. And we're anticipating about $1 million in funding would be available for the pilot equity program in the first year, and $600,000 would be available in subsequent years. Although this is sort of the floor commitment that the JPA has made, and additional funding might be available in later years, depending on sort of usage of the toll lanes and how much overall revenue is available. Next slide. So I just want to go over some of the desired outcomes that we've developed to guide the equity study and development of the pilot equity program. In particular, we want to make sure that these strategies benefit underserved communities who either live in or who live near or use the toll lanes, and that the development of the pilot equity program is, and reflects input from these historically disadvantaged communities. And we also want to make sure that we're encouraging mode shift to high occupancy modes like public transit and carpool. Next slide. So I'm just going to run through a little bit of the sort of technical evaluation that we've done. And then I should have mentioned when I initially started talking on my overview slide, but the primary purpose of this presentation is we want to present 4 alternatives that our team has developed. And we're doing sort of a technical evaluation on these alternatives, as well as seeking community feedback. And then we'll be recommending a final alternative to be implemented once the toll lanes open. So we're really excited to get your feedback on that. But just a little bit of background on the technical evaluation that we've done. We wanted to make sure that we really understood the mobility needs and challenges of historically underserved communities in San Mateo County. So part of what we did is this evaluation of some publicly available data and survey data that we have. And as part of that, we identified these 15 study geographies. And these are communities that are close to the US 101 corridor and are based on a certain set of community characteristics that we developed, like age, ethnicity, income, and prevalency of single parent households and other factors. Next slide, please. So we use this geographic identification of these target communities to do some data analysis. And one of the data sources we looked at was a survey that was collected for the US 101 Mobility Action Plan. And we filtered these survey responses by both our target geographies and also an income threshold, and had some interesting findings, including that 8% of respondents don't have access to a credit card or bank account and have limited access to the internet and a smartphone. So these are the type of sort of considerations we want to be aware of as we design the program and think about how people are accessing it. 11% have a disability, 12% don't have access to a car, and about a quarter of respondents feel unsafe walking or biking on streets close to the US 101. Next slide. So we've already done one round of community engagement as part of our equity study. We did a lot of outreach last fall, both directly to community members and working with CBOs. And some of the key takeaways that we found is that people have challenges with public transportation being unreliable. The cost of transportation is a major concern for a lot of people, and this is true both for people who need to drive and for people riding public transit, especially those who are relying on Caltrain. And traffic was also a key challenge for people. And in addition to these challenges, we also heard a lot of really great feedback around equity program recommendations, and you'll see these are reflected in the alternatives that we're presenting today. Next slide. So this is just an overview of this alternative development process that we're in the middle of right now. So starting last fall, we took the community outreach findings from our phase 1 outreach events, as well as some technical evaluation that we did and looking at best practices from other similar equity programs. And we developed sort of a preliminary list of 10 alternatives. And these were really just all of the ideas that we had come up with based on our outreach and also looking at sort of peer programs. And then we did a very high level screening of these initial 10 ideas to look at sort of the depth of the benefit that we would be providing, how many people we think we could afford to serve based on the alternative, the cost, administrative challenges, and just whether or not they really aligned with the community feedback that we'd received so far. And based on that screening, we came up with the 4 alternatives that we'll present today. So we're doing our phase 2 community outreach now, which this meeting is a part of. And we're also doing a more robust technical evaluation to sort of compare the 4 alternatives and the benefits that they would provide. And then we will be recommending a final recommended equity program for the JPA board adoption this spring. Next slide. So the first alternative that we are presenting is an express lane toll benefit. And so essentially for individuals who qualify to benefit from the equity program, they would receive the new Fast Track Flex transponder that Jessica described earlier with $50 in cash on the transponder. And this could be used both to access the new express lanes or on any facility across the Bay Area that accepts Fast Track. And so the primary purpose is enabling people to have access to the lanes. And also there's a benefit just in having the new fast track transponder, because even when that initial $50 runs out, they can either add more money to the transponder, or they just having the transponder will allow people to use the toll lanes as a carpool for free. Next slide. So alternative number 2 is sort of a similar idea, but it would be a public transit benefit instead of a sort of benefit that enables people to access highway facilities. So this would be providing $50 in cash on a Clipper card that people could use to ride any public transit facility that accepts Clipper across the Bay Area. So this is really designed to be as flexible as possible in enabling people to ride public transit throughout the region. Next slide. So alternative number 3 would be place-based improvements. So these are physical improvements to make it safer and more comfortable to bike, walk, and take transit, especially focusing on some of the vulnerable communities where we've really seen a high rate of accidents and where we've heard directly that people feel unsafe biking and walking. And the cost of these type of improvements varies really widely. So something like a new bus shelter is relatively inexpensive compared to a major intersection upgrade with, new pedestrian signals and accessibility improvements, or, bike infrastructure. So this would likely be implemented as a fund that communities could apply to in sort of a call for projects type program. So finally, our 4th alternative is a carpool rewards program. And this would enable people to claim up to $50 a year in a cash benefit for taking carpool trips. It's not necessarily tied to use of the express lanes. It could be any type of carpool trip. And, they would receive a benefit up to $50 a year, whether they're, a passenger and someone else is giving them a ride, or whether they're driving and sharing that ride with other people. Okay, so just a look ahead at some of our next steps. As I mentioned, we're currently in the middle of our community engagement to get feedback on these 4 alternatives, and we're doing our technical evaluation to look at benefits and potential impacts to the toll lanes. And after we've sort of collected all of this feedback and analysis, we'll be selecting and recommending a preferred alternative to the JPA board, which will hopefully be adopted in May 2021, so this spring. And then the next step would be to develop an implementation plan to really iron out the details, like who would be eligible to participate in this program, and to just make sure that it's aligned with the toll operations and those details that are still being finalized. And I'll just say that the final recommended equity program could be one of the 4 alternatives that we're looking at today, or it could be sort of a variation of one of these alternatives based on the feedback we're hearing, or it could be a combination of them. So nothing's set in stone right now. So I just want to highlight that we have a virtual community meeting coming up. We'd really love if you could share this information, and we want to make sure that we're providing an opportunity for sort of the public at large and everyone in San Mateo County to participate and give their feedback, in addition to the sort of focus outreach events that we're doing. So it's coming up Thursday, March 18th, and we have contact information available here. So I'm just going to walk through a few discussion questions, and then we're really open to any feedback you have or continued questions for myself or Jessica or Matt. So our first question is, which alternative would best meet the needs of the historically underserved communities that you serve or are part of? If there's something that you would change to make one or all of the alternatives more effective? What other types of programs or investments would be beneficial? So if you have ideas that are not reflected here, we would love to hear them. And if there are barriers that could interfere with this program reaching these who need it most, or any sort of thoughts you have on implementation that we should be aware of. So I'll leave it at that, and we're excited to hear your feedback. I know
I
that
see,
was a lot
yeah.
of information.
I had a
very good.
question real quick, or a clarifying one. Are for the first two alternatives, 1 and 2, are those just a one-time deal, or is it an annual thing for the people who receive it?
So the final answer to that really depends on how many people who are eligible would participate in the program. We're imagining that, I mean, we kind of had to make a lot of assumptions just to be able to evaluate these different alternatives. So right now we're imagining that the transponder with the $50 in cash would probably be a one-time benefit, especially since just having the transponder is something that people don't need every year. And we're imagining that the cash on Clipper could probably be annual. It's a little cheaper to administer the cash on Clipper just because we would be taking advantage of the existing program that MTC already has. So it's a little bit of an unsatisfying answer, but that's kind of how we're currently envisioning it. But part of the reason we're doing this as a pilot is so that we can make those type of adjustments based on participation and other factors.
Okay. Gotcha. And also, I don't know if you all already saw some of the, I guess, census data of like how many people in these designated areas, I think 15 areas, are single, like are single drivers to their work that's outside of their cities. And most of them that you have identified have high rates of those. Also in South City, because I'm also one of the drivers that drive around by myself. And so do my parents. So
Yeah.
yes. How would you, I understand the need to do more high occupancy vehicles, but I'm wondering with COVID, how likely are people gonna try to be all in one car, right? If it's outside of their family, outside of their circle, right?
Yeah, it's a really good point, and we definitely understand that carpooling or other options besides single occupancy vehicle use isn't an option for a lot of people. I guess I would say that this equity program would be kicking off in the fall when the express lanes open. So, I don't know how much longer COVID is going to be a concern with that, but it's definitely something that we might need to adapt the program based on sort of those considerations.
And just a reminder on the funding that the board committed $1 million spread off the bat and then $600,000 annually. And as Sophia said, they're talking about this as more of a floor than a ceiling. So this really is a long-term investment. And it is a pilot. We may change it in 2 years because we realize that, what we pick needs to be adjusted. But it really is, we hope this will long outstrip the impacts of COVID and that people will return to comfortably commuting with their neighbors, with their coworkers to their destination to help relieve traffic and, because we all miss being around other people.
And my last input, sorry, Hermes, sorry, just last one, sorry. Like Hermes said about the tech buses, are just a suggestion, are there gonna be like community buses going up and down San Mateo on the express lane so other people can come off and go on and off for free?
I mean, it's called Samtrans.
But like a different one,
there's Samtrans obviously as the transit system, and we are looking at express buses, and those express buses are designed to maximize using the express lane. And then, we're analyzing whether, charging on corporate shuttles and all of that. And then really, we don't know where the future is going with transit and, private sector and different things. But if you are in a multi-person vehicle, you will be using the bus for free. So this could spur more innovation around that and trying to get more bus systems. But for now, we've got Samtrans, and we do really are looking at how we can use the express lane for moving more people up and down the corridor and more the long haul travel as opposed to the short trips that people mostly think of Samtrans for.
Thank you.
Okay, I have one question. It's a talking example about the Samtrans. It's nice that I will get from South San Francisco to San Mateo in the 15-20 minutes. But what is the last 2 miles? what will happen when I will need to go to the work. Now I will wait another 45 minutes for the connections or for something like, are you looking to this one that you are not doing only the highway, the Samtrans highway, but you are connecting the Samtrans to the another places, because usually there are not too many work exactly when the stop will finish, the bus will finish. The people will probably need to go another 1 mile, 2 mile, 3 miles to the final destination. And
Yeah.
Yeah, did you get my point?
Absolutely. So in about 2 or 3 weeks, I'm going to be sending Chris an email asking if I can come back to this commission wearing my other hat, working for Samtrans, so I'll have a different virtual background, to talk about Reimagine Samtrans, which is a long-term planning project we're doing on the bus side, and we're going to be doing public outreach in April and May. So hopefully be able to get on your agenda in that time. And so what we're doing is a really deep dive into the entire bus system. Everything from the hours that we're operating, where our buses go, how they connect to other transit systems, dealing with that first last mile. We're going to have 3 different potential alternatives for people to react to. The ultimate proposal will be some amalgam of them. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of different thoughts around South San Francisco and all the cities in San Mateo County of how we can make the best bus system possible and really address those issues. So that is definitely coming. That is not part of this project, but you know, we wear a lot of hats at the transit district. So that's one of my other hats. And that's something we're really, really looking at very, very closely right now. And then in August, so it would be adopted by the board, the Samtrans board, end of 2021. Early 2022 for implementation of the new route system in August of 2022. So yes, we are absolutely working on that right now.
Okay.
And I'll come back and tell you all about it.
One more note. Okay, you are offering like a $50 Clipper card for 1 year. I don't know, now the trip to San Francisco, from South City to San Francisco, is like $8, if I am not confused. It's mean that $8 there, $8 back. Do I am right, or am I confused? But it will get me like 3 trips to the San Francisco a year, the $50. I'm only making comment on it. Yeah, do I am right, or
well, the pricing on the express lanes, how much it would actually cost you to travel, you know, from South San Francisco to Redwood City, that hasn't been established yet. But what I'm hearing out of the comment is maybe this is not enough to actually be.
Yeah. No, because this is not only the preload, this is the Clipper card. I think that the Clipper card, you are using it more or less for the BART or this kind of stuff. The Clipper card is $50 too. And like a.
Yeah, sorry, I thought you were referring to the yes, the Clipper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not if you take Samtrans.
I agree.
It's $250 on Samtrans.
I think the point's well taken that it's a relatively low benefit, and you know, hopefully we can make it higher. We're trying to sort of keep it a comparable amount so we can compare the different options, whether it's a toll benefit or a carpool benefit or transit benefits. But ideally, we would like to be able to provide a higher annual amount.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your feedback. Are there any other comments about sort of preferences between the different alternatives, or sort of comments about how they would be implemented or could be revised?
Actually, just to cut in, I believe Chair Ewan, then Commissioner Monzon had questions. They had their hands up.
Oh,
I don't
great.
know if you could see
Thank
that.
you. Sorry. I'm not used to, I'm usually on Teams.
Hermes, you can go first.
Thank you, Justin. Yes. I just want to clarify. I've been reading this information prior tonight's information from you. And I just kind of a little bit confused. What do you mean by underserved communities? And if you could be more specific in South San Francisco, if you locate already an area or areas of South San Francisco?
Okay. Yeah, that's a great question. I would say that the definition of who would qualify for participation in any of these alternatives has yet to be determined. It wouldn't be necessarily, it would be open to anyone who qualifies within San Mateo County. And so even though for the purpose of our analysis and doing outreach, we've identified specific communities and, you know, geographically specific places where we want to sort of, for the purpose of screening and doing our data analysis, we wouldn't say that only people who live in those communities are eligible. It would likely be some combination of, you know, it would be something along the lines of an income threshold, for example. So MTC uses 200% of the federal poverty level for determining participation in their low-income transit benefit program. So we might do something similar to that, especially if we were doing the Clipper card option to be consistent. But we've sort of only identified eligibility for the purpose of doing the evaluation. We haven't necessarily determined it for program participation. Does that make sense? That was a little convoluted, wasn't it?
No, I mean, so you don't have a specific area. So you're saying
No.
in everywhere. So community for you project is all South San Francisco. It's not an area of South San Francisco.
It would be specific people who meet certain criteria, regardless of where they live in San Mateo County.
I just want to let you know that I was involved in the survey of last year. We were under the impression that underserved community are certain areas of the city, like the area. So it's very interesting how you are presenting that is underserved community. So we are thinking that is Old Town area, which is next to downtown. And if it's not, we should say that, because if you're saying that the community is thinking that help is coming on the way, and coming on the way, that for alternatives that you have is far away from the needs that the community has. So you have to be more specific.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. It does. I think one of the reasons why it depends a little bit on which of these alternatives we choose. So for example, if it's a place-based improvement and we're providing funding for biking and walking safety improvements, those likely would be geographically specific. But if it's something like a transit benefit or using the toll lane, we wouldn't want to say that anyone in this neighborhood gets that benefit, because there could be very wealthy people in that neighborhood and very poor people. And, you know, we want to make sure that we're really targeting the people who need the benefit the most. So we sort of have two categories of benefits. We have the sort of cash benefit program model, which would be, you know, alternatives 1, 2, and 4. And then we have place-based geographic improvements, which is alternative 3. And so the eligibility for something like cash on Clipper or the toll benefit would just be based on your individual, you know, income or other sort of criteria, rather than geographically where in the county you live. Does that help?
Yeah, that helps. I just want to mention that cash is always good, but I think we have an opportunity here to actually, if you build something, it's going to have a better impact to any community. Cash will be very short term, but if you build something like a bus stop shelter that we needed, or communities that they need, it will actually make a bigger impact to any community. So surprised that these 4 alternatives, one of them mentioned about the bus stop shelter, but the community has to apply for that. That's what I read earlier.
We wouldn't be able to fund everything in year one, and so we would probably need to have some sort of program where we look at all the possible projects and then fund it on an ongoing basis. Especially since the amount of funding available compared to the cost of those improvements, we can only do so much every year, which is a concern with any of the programs that we would implement.
One last question. You just mentioned something very interesting. You don't foresee it to happen anything on the year 1 or 2. The best effective way would be having a representation from the community. So it could be somebody on the table. Otherwise, any help could be deviated to different places.
Yeah, and we are looking at ways that we can have more ongoing engagement, so that it isn't just this sort of one round of outreach and then we're implementing something. But I don't know, Jessica and Matt, if you want to say something. I don't know that we have a clear plan for what that would look like yet.
In terms of long-term community engagement?
And, sort of ongoing ways for people to inform the equity program.
Well, one of the things that we did in our phase 2, and, Hermes, I know that we've been working with you actually in the community group, is that, in our first phase of outreach, we kind of went more through consultants, and we had this realization we really needed to be here as a district and be here as an agency. So as I keep talking about my different hats, when you're talking to me, you're not just talking to the JPA, the manager of the Express Lanes, or the TA, the funder. You're also talking to the Samtrans bus system and the Caltrain train system. And one of the reasons we did that is to create consistency with community-based organizations. So we've been developing relationships all up and down the county and really pulling it back to that district level. So we're not just looking at, hey, can you advise us on this Express Lanes, but hey, can you talk to us about all of our different elements of work? Because this project that's going on, it's a smaller, in the grand scheme of an agency that's also delivering an electrified train and an entire lane, it's on the smaller scale, but is part of our suite, essentially, right? All the different projects we're working on. So as we move forward with all of our different things, we're going to keep having these conversations with community groups to make sure that they're always a part of the conversation with us, and developing those more personal relationships. There's 2 other people who I work with a lot, Wendy and Ryan, who are really very involved in the agency equity work. And so that's really what our long-term plan is right now, is to just make it a part of our district, really have that internal commitment to equity and have staff dedicated to that so they can really build the relationships up and down the corridor.
And I'll just chip in general at a sort of higher level, because you asked a lot of very good questions. And I would just say, generally, your questions fall into a level of detail around the implementation of the program. And we'll be working on the implementation details over the late spring and summer. So they're just not baked yet. And we wouldn't want them baked yet, because we're going to go through all of this feedback, go through the board process, and then figure out a lot of the implementation issues after we've done the technical analysis. And so what Sophia's laid out for you as far as the 4 alternatives, the level of the program, and by that I mean the $50 benefit level, all of those are technical parameters that they've used for their analysis. It by no means that when it comes to July, it's going to be $50 and not a different number, or it's not. So all of and sometimes numbers feel so final, but these are preliminary numbers and they're only meant for technical analysis. And the same can be said for the eligibility requirements that Sophia just talked about. Those are to be able to think about how big the program could be and what it could afford.
Yeah, I mean, the reason we're doing this outreach is exactly to get the feedback that you're providing and to think about how we design the program so that it takes these things into consideration. So this is very helpful.
And finally, I just had one quick. I'll just make this quick since we are running out of time. But I had a question about alternative 3, which is the bike and pedestrian projects alternative. So I noticed in the slide that it mentioned that there would be potential grant funding for cities to apply for to implement bike and pedestrian projects. So would projects that are eligible for that funding, would they need to be somehow tied directly to, bike and pedestrian access to transit facilities that use the corridor, or would eligible projects, could they just be bike and pedestrian projects in general that help to get cars off the road?
Yeah, I'll follow up with this one too. That's a great question, and it's better than a question. It's a really good point or idea. As far as some sort of weighting about bike ped that had access to transit or helped with transit connectivity. This would also fall into sort of a follow-on of my earlier statement about we would figure out those sort of details in the implementation plan. What we wanted to put forward at this point was some various alternatives to see what sort of input we would get from the community groups, stakeholders, et cetera. So that's why we have an alternative that provides you direct access to the express lane. That's why we have an alternative that provides you, access to transit service in the form of alternative 2, and then a more geographically based one in bike ped and safety. So they are alternatives that are not fully formed. And so let's say, for instance, alternative 3, and it was going to be sort of place-based equity, and the board approved that, and that was the one that moved forward. We'd then have to come up with our methodology for how that call for projects would work. And then we'd have to come up with the weighting system and how things would get ranked and approved. That hasn't been done yet. But I'll steal your suggestion because it's a really good one.
Thanks. Yeah, I as much as I am an advocate for bike and pedestrian improvements, I feel that there's a lot of time that goes that is required to issue a call for projects and have agencies apply, and then to design and plan and implement those projects. So there is a time delay in terms of when those benefits of the bike and pedestrian improvements will be realized, as compared to some of the other alternatives like the subsidies that can be, those benefits can be realized almost immediately, and they can be utilized a lot sooner than waiting on bike and pedestrian projects to be implemented in the long term. So that would be sort of my comment on that. I think that bike and pedestrian projects, obviously they provide a big benefit in terms of improving safety for those modes and getting cars off the road. But if we're looking at alternatives that can be, strategies that can be implemented in the short term to advance equity, I think there are other alternatives that can get it done quicker.
Yeah, and ideally there'll be some hybrid, and then there'll also be some recognition, to your point, that there's a temporal aspect to this, and we want to do things in the short term, and then and that's why you heard the term piloted used and phasing, because we have forecasts, and we want to get the southern section open by the end of this year, and then the northern 14 miles a year after. So it's going to be a little less than 2 years, and we're going to have a whole 22-mile segment open, which is substantial, and the fact that it then connects to the VTA's project to the south. So it'll be good to then realize a year of operational data after the fact, see what's going on, and then be able to, I wouldn't say pivot, but sort of refine and layer on other things over time. And so we as a project team are certainly, cognizant of that and thinking about that. But this is the exact reason we're coming out here, and, Jessica's set up 17 meetings in 6 weeks for us is to get this. It's a great point. I sincerely appreciate the input.
Thank you. And sorry, one more follow-up question, just going back to the time frame for the project. Could you elaborate on the schedule for the southern phase and also for the northern phase?
Yep, the southern phase is, they're both under construction, as Jessica said. The southern phase is currently scheduled to open by the end of this year. That's 8 miles, the southern 8 miles. And then the northern section, I think technically the schedule is November of 2022.
For start of construction or completion?
For opening, I apologize. It's
Okay.
all under construction for opening. Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep.
Well, if there aren't other questions, want to say thank you to everyone. Really appreciate this, and feel free to follow up with us if you have other questions. And again, I'll be back to talk about the bus on another day, and we'll just keep coming back. This has been a really great meeting.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please do feel free to contact us if you have more input and to spread the word about the Zoom public meeting.
See you on the team.
Thanks, Jessica and your team.
Thank you.
Can I make a comment? Adina, these are the meetings are like this 1 hour and a half. Just kidding.
Usually they're 3 hours, right?
Yeah, the longer the better.
That's right.
Okay, moving on to items from the commission.
I have a quick comment. On Oyster Point Boulevard. Over the weekend, there was a changes. When you go all the way down to Kilroy or Kill Point. Please correct me if I'm using the right terminology, please. There is some changes of the road, and there was the signs were put, I guess, before, but the wind just bringing them down, so it was creating a lot of traffic on that area. So I see a lot of action over the weekend, police cars, and just people going on the wrong lane because the signage was not properly in place, or just the wind move, bringing it down. I'm just going to suggest that if we can look into that as far as traffic and safety concerns.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Monzon. I'll alert Public Works. It may have been that it was that the wind blew down the signage, but we'll have somebody look at that. Thank you.
Anything else?
Chris, can you, I don't know who has access to the social media sites for the city of South San Francisco. If you can post the public meeting for the Highway 101 public meeting for everyone, so they can at least see and attend if they'd like to make any comments on that.
Yes, sure. We'll reach out to our communications division and then have them push that out to citywide, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And if I could just say, I do the Facebook page for economic and community development. So we'll post for this week, definitely, and a reminder next week. And then we'll ask the main page for South San Francisco government to post it sometime between now and next week.
Perfect.
All right. If there's nothing else, I guess we'll move on to adjournment so we can all go to dinner. The meeting's adjourned at 6:35.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Great.
All right.
Thank you,
Thanks so
everyone.
much.
Thank you,
Thanks,
everyone.
See you
everybody.
next
Nice
time.
to meet you all.
Thank you.
Have a good
See you
dinner.
next month.
Good night.